Hello everybody! Today I am back in Pokemon Yellow. Once again I quote-unquote participated in a Scots race, and like the masochist I ended up doing another bide run. The time constraints were pretty tight, so I did not think I could do a pure bide run and opted for a Bide Light, not Bud Light, run. To clarify what that is, let me quickly get over the rules. First, we have the usual set, so I can only use the starter in combat, I can't use items from the bag, I can't raise my evasion, and I can't use cheats or glitches. I also can't waste a turn to sketch stuff. Let's now talk about the Bide Light rules. They are not too complicated. Like in my previous two videos, I can only use Bide to deal direct damage, but this time I allowed the use of passive damage like confusion, poison, and a couple other things. Also, I wrote down a short document with some tips if anybody is crazy enough to do something like this. It should be in the description. With all of that said, we can finally start the video. I tied the rival fight in the lab. This is important because my first objective was to sketch Send Attack from PG. It took a while because they refused to use it, but eventually I was able to copy it. I need Send Attack because I plan on stealing Bide from Onyx, and that was the only way I had to defeat Geodude with struggle at level 10. The experience from it leveled me and I learned a new sketch. Here I had to break a rule and waste a turn because I was too fast and would not be able to copy it in time. After some XP grind, I was high level enough to challenge Brock for real. The fight against him is not too eventful, so I can use this opportunity to shout out Gigalichu, the other runner of this category, who used Gamehook to lower his speed divis to the point where he could underspeed Onyx. We did things differently, so I'll mention him again later. I had to reset quite a few times in Mount Moon because I accidentally bumped into trainers and fighting them was a pain since they don't do much damage. I should also mention that I copied Supersonic from one of the many Zubats in the cave, since this time it is allowed. The fossil guy was a bit of a problem in the other runs, but this time, with some more damage on my side because of confusion, I only lost a couple of times to him. Instead, Team Rocket was the wall preventing me from exiting the cave this time. And unexpectedly it was because of their somewhat high damage, since I don't have any recovery moves just yet. Since I'm here, I'll explain now the weird interaction between confusion and bide. If an enemy is confused and hits themselves, that damage is added to the bide counter. I'm not sure why that happens, but that's janky Gen 1 coding for you. This strategy is very important and essential for a fight later. In Cerulean City, I first attempted to defeat our rival, but it did not go so well for me. And after losing a good number of times, I gave up and tried Misty. She too was challenging, but not as much. I just needed a bit of good RNG so that her Starmie wasted a turn or two at the right time. Eventually, at reset 69, nice, I was able to endure her attacks and unleash them back for a nice KO. I can't delay the fight anymore, so I have to take on the rival now. This one has always been one of the biggest obstacles in the run the past 2 times. Smeargle was able to get through him with a considerably smaller number of resets and time investment, mostly because of the use of other pseudo-offensive moves. After the arrival, we can do the story stuff with the Bill and then gain access to the ship. Here we have a bit of a deja vu with the next rival fight. Fortunately, his team is stronger, which means that we have an easier time dealing with him. I would say that from this point onward, Bide is actually sort of a usable move and not total garbage. The keen-eyed among you also noticed that the resets and time are a little suspicious. Well, I accidentally reset them, so yeah, that sucks. It will happen a few more times. Also, I have poison powder now, so yay, reliable damage after 4 hours. After grabbing Cat, we can start the electric gym. Surge defeated me once or twice, which was a bit surprising, but with only one Pokemon on his side, it's only a matter of time before he is defeated too. You might hear me call it Smeargle from time to time. For whatever reason, I always pronounced the name like that. In the document, there is also a list of trainers against whom you can freely use Struggle, since they are impossible or close to that with Bide. In a rock tunnel, I had the opportunity to copy Leech Seed, but forgot about it like an idiot. No point crying over spilled milk. It's time for the fourth fight against the rival. This one was surprisingly hard. Since I skipped over Leech Seed, I still don't have any healing moves, so I ended up losing because of it a good number of times. The other guy who did the run was a bit smarter than me and got Leech Seed. I'm sure that made his life easier for the next couple of hours of gameplay. Also, there is another interesting combo. For whatever reason, Leech Seed and Toxic share the counter. This means that every turn Leech Seed gets more powerful too, both in dealing damage and recovering HP, making for a solid strategy that I missed out on. The only drawback is that poison types are immune to Toxic, so you are left with a regular Leech Seed. Surprisingly, there is quite a large number of poison types in yellow. Koga, Giovanni and Agatha come to mind. At this point, was it almost any other Pokemon, I would have thought rest with the TM you can find in the ship, but unfortunately Smeargle, even though he can sketch any move, can't learn anything from TMs. Anyway, it's about time to duel the next gym leader. Erika is generally very annoying in these runs, and I feel like if you are playing a pure Bide run, you are almost always going to have to use Struggle against her. Her first Pokemon is not able to deal much damage, and so it's going to eat up all of your Bide PPs. Thankfully this time I have poison powder to deal damage. Never thought I would say that sentence. Also in Lavender I upgraded Supersonic to Confuse Ray. That 55 accuracy was driving me insane. Tangela does go down easily, but then, as you saw at the start of the fight, the problems popped up like mushrooms. Both of her Pokémons are poison type, so I can't use the powder against them. They can also deal a lot of damage, especially if Weeping Bell crits me. Needless to say, the situation was looking pretty dire, but I kept on going and the RNG gods blessed me on this day. Gloom was too busy hitting himself to finish me off, so I defeated it without taking much damage. Next, I caught a random Kangaskhan in the Safari Zone because I needed an HM slave and then made a huge mistake. I accidentally forgot Sand Attack. I wanted to upgrade Poison Powder with Toxic, but now I am stuck with both of the poison moves. Unfortunately, to fix the situation, I had to go on a grind against the silph rival until I got all the way to level 61. Here I learned a new sketch that I can use to copy a move, and that's how I finally got a healing move after 10 hours or so. With my moveset pretty much completed, I can hopefully take on the rest of the game. First off is the 5th, I think, fight against the rival. From here on, Bide will be used quite a bit less. I am mostly going to make sure to poison them with Toxic and then use Confuse Ray to make them skip turns. That's the main reason why I don't like this run as much as the pure Bide one. I will still use it if I have nothing better to do, and in some occasions it can nuke a Pokémon very easily. Not going to lie, Rest made this fight a lot easier than what I was expecting. While it may have seemed close at the points, it was arguably one of the easiest in the run. With him defeated, we can proceed with the rest of the tower. There is a fight against Jesse and James, but I'll skip it since it's very easy, so we can do Giovanni immediately. This is my first fight against him, since I skipped the one under the casino because I used the Pokédoll to get past the ghosts. I was a bit worried about him, his damage output is kinda high, but taking a look at his team on the right side, there is not much that worries me. Quick test, where's Nidoqueen? Not on the screen anymore. After humiliating Giovanni, we can attempt to take revenge on Koga. He was a bit of a pain, mostly because Psychic often lowered my special until it was dealing way too much damage. Another thing to note is that his whole team is a poison type, so I can't use Toxic against him. For me this was a nuisance, but for Gigalichu this fight might have been a bit harder since he can't really heal much either, and most importantly can't clear Toxic. If I remember, I'll link his channel in the description. We were each other's emotional support throughout this journey. Anyway, this time Koga did not get as lucky with the drops. Fortunately, his ace did not attack me much, and I was able to defeat this gym leader too. A massive time skip later, we are at Blaine, who was a bit more problematic than I was expecting. Unlike Parasect, I am not weak to fire, but my low special defense and not great HP can't really protect me from his massive fire blasts. I lost a few times against him, but since his AI is not great, I knew it was a question of time before his Pokémons chose the wrong moves and I could come out on top. Since his Pokémons are not poison, I can just stall them out until Toxic does its thing. Unfortunately, I lost the Sabrina fight to the sands of time, but you did not miss much. Only a couple of losses because of special drops. Given how the first match against Giovanni went, I was expecting the Gym 1 to be easy too, but as you can clearly see, this was not the case at all. The main obstacle are the two Nidos. They are part poison, so I can't use Toxic, and thanks to his smart AI, they will always use Double Kick, which deals a lot of damage. Even more so if Persian used Screech before. I tried it a few times at level 67, but then took the blackouts to gain more levels. I saw little progress until the mid-70s, but eventually Smeargle grew strong enough to tackle this gym. At this point, Nidoqueen was doable, but Nidoking was still too strong for me. Unless I got a bit lucky. I could barely survive 3 double kicks, but that would force me to rest immediately. That would have been great to PP stall him, but unfortunately in Gen 1 trainers have infinite PPs, so that is not an option. The only thing I could do is try him over and over again until confusion worked in my favor and made him hit himself a few times. In this attempt, that's more or less what happened. Thanks to him skipping a turn here and there, it left me a couple openings to either reapply confusion or, if I felt risky, go for Bide. In the end, I went for the safer option, and I am glad I did, because I am positive I would have died otherwise. It was very close, my health dropping down to a single-digit HP at some point, but eventually I was able to win over the surprisingly short king. Rhydon is not poison, so I clicked Toxic and then spammed Rest. The end. Might be an underwhelming ending, but I'm glad it's over. Immediately after the gym, we have another fight against our rival. Man, when is this guy going to stop bothering me? This time he is more annoying than hard. His eggs have Leech Seed, who can get extremely annoying if he used it. I preferred to take the reset instead of keep fighting him. Other than that, there are not that many threats on him. He has some decent special attackers, but as long as they don't get too many crits, this fight is very doable. Since the rest of the fight is kinda boring, feel free to scroll down a little and subscribe if you are enjoying the video. Also remember to leave a like and click the bell. Lastly, if I am not asking too much, write something in the comments. All feedback is appreciated. I have to say, this run made me rethink Vaporeon. He can do some solid damage with those hydro pumps. I guess it is not only a tank. With our rival taken care of, I only have the league left, and after some adventures in Victory Road, I finally reached the last destination of my journey. Original Glacia is up first. She was a tough cookie, much like Vaporeon. Her water types can do a lot of damage, and I don't really have the moveset or stats to deal with that. I lost a few times, but nothing to worry about. The main threats were Lapras and I thought Cloyster, but in reality Slowking gave me a lot more trouble, because if he sets up with Amnesia, a Surf or a Psychic, it's going to demolish me. Fortunately, Confuse Ray did a lot of overtime work for me and made Slowbro hit itself a bunch of times. This gave me the time to heal back up and stop being on the defensive. I was expecting Jinx to be more of a problem, but in Gen 1 her special is average, so she could not hit me very hard. Confusion came in clutch once again against her ace, giving me an extra turn to land Toxic on it. And from there I tried to stall it as much as possible. It was close, but eventually I came out on top, and with that we only have 4 fights left in the game. Next is Bruno, and yeah, I usually don't take part in the Bruno slander, but I can't hold myself back this time. Not sure if you noticed, but the resets did not change. So yeah, I defeated him in the first attempt. My guy, you can't be an Elite 4 and not even take a win against this moveset. I would maybe understand if I was a Steelix or something else super tanky, but my defense is literally 35, the same as your Hitmonchan's special. Well, from the easiest to the hardest, or is it? Agatha is next, and I might have a little bit of PTSD from what she did to me in the Parasect run, so she was the only trainer I was thinking about while routing and playing the game. All of this attention I gave her somehow played dividends, because this time she was sort of easy. Sure, I still lost a few times and the attempts took 10 minutes each, but hey, I only spent half an hour against her. That's a new PB by like 4 hours. If you watched the Parasect video, this fight should not surprise you. The strategy is pretty much the same. Use Confuse Ray, then Bide and hope they hit themselves a bunch. The only thing that, in my opinion, made the difference is that I increased Confuse Ray's PPs to the max. This might seem weird, but that's the only thing that can give me semi-reliable damage in this fight. And before you write it down, no, I cannot use a Struggle. In Gen 1 it's considered a normal type, so I can't touch her ghosts with it. This is the other fight where the Leech Seed toxic strategy might have some issues since you can't toxic them, and both Golbat and Arbok have status effects that can easily ruin your run. After defeating the Grim Reaper's wife, we can move on to the Edgelord, who, to his credit, managed to be arguably the hardest fight in the game. This is all because of another weird interaction in the first generation. For whatever reason, if you get paralyzed and then clear the status with rest or a full restore, the status gets removed, but the speed drop does not, so you will still move at the speed of a snail. That wouldn't really be a problem with the stronger Pokémon, but his Aerodactyl and Dragonite both deal a tremendous amount of damage to me, so I can't afford any handicaps while fighting them. In this attempt I was lucky, and the only time it used Thunder Wave it's when I was asleep, so it did not work since I already had a status. I sort of wanted to reach 91, so I get another sketch and copy Thunder Wave, but I don't think I had any room for it, and I'm not sure how useful it would be in the champion fight. Let's not speak about that close encounter with death. Living on 1 HP was plain luck. Unfortunately, I could not land Toxic on Aerodactyl at the start, because I had to play defensively. Once I finally do, it's only a question of stalling him for a few turns. I was able to sneak in a Toxic against a Dragonite, as it was recharging from Hyper Beam. Then, since I still have high speed, I can outspeed and take a nap. Finally, we have reached the last fight in the game. Unfortunately, it's against our rival one more time. His team is actually quite powerful. Even his more mediocre Pokémons can deal lots of damage because of my poor defenses. The only nice thing is that none of his Pokémons are poison, so I can always rely on a Toxic. The only hard part will be to survive the onslaught of attacks. There are a couple of other annoyances, to be fair. Some status effects, and Leech Seed pokes its ugly head again, but overall this one was not too bad. I still lost a couple of times, but that is to be expected in this kind of runs. I also got a bit lucky with Confusion against Executor. Because of it, he was unable to seed me, which made my life a lot easier. Yep, that move is haunting and taunting me for forgetting to pick it up back in the rock tunnel. Halfway through his team, I was feeling pretty good. The damage is a bit backloaded, so I now run the risk of getting crit into oblivion, but as long as the fight does not get too wild, I should be able to endure. Unfortunately, I got paralyzed, and as you can see, even after resting, my speed is still reduced by like 99%. The -5 defense might seem scary, but it actually helps me out. His physical options are not great, so I can safely bide them. It would have been poetic to finish it with the Bide, but Toxic stole the kill. This one was a bit easier than the pure Bide, so if this sort of things interest you, I suggest starting with something similar to this run. I am now going to put on screen the final time and resets of all the segments, if we want to call them that. Ultimately, it was around 15 and a half hours, which is more or less what I was expecting, and just shy of 400 resets, which is not that many, all things considered. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please remember to like, share, subscribe, ring the bell, and all of that YouTube stuff. If you want to attempt something like that, like this, check the doc in the description. If you have any questions about it, write me a comment or DM on Discord. And with that, I bid you farewell until next week. Bye!